All right, guys, do you want to walk with me through this exercise? It's an exercise in Call of Duty's impact to the gaming industry. You can throw Fortnite in there. You can throw freaking NBA 2K, Grand Theft Auto 5 online, whatever you want into this particular category. But we'll use Call of Duty as an example because we were able to, I don't know how, but fortunately, by God's divine influence, we got some information and some data out here. I don't know how that happened, but I think it was necessary for us. So all of YouTube and all of Twitter, if you can fix your eyes upon this image, let's go. In 2021, more than 1 million PlayStation players only played Call of Duty. This was on PlayStation. What's the context here, right? The context here was during the acquisition for Activision Blizzard King, going to the courts, going to the regulators, and so on and so forth. This article by GamesRadar highlighted something that Sony had put forward as a concern. And if you look at the subheading, it says, and 6 million spent 70% of their time with Call of Duty. Now, this is 2021's data. Let's just say Call of Duty never really grew. Sorry, guys. I know I'm being silly. But this dominant force, according to this writer, and the ongoing FTC case against Microsoft serves as a potent reminder of that fact. Last night, reporters covering the latest development of the Activision Blizzard deal trial discovered, and I'm going to read very fast, some of the documents Sony has submitted had been incorrectly redacted, meaning some information from the document. Whew. In 2021, Sony claims that about 1 million users spent 100% of their time playing Call of Duty. Additionally, while the average player spent 16 hours per year playing Call of Duty, 6 million spend 70% of their time on the platform with this specific franchise, amounting to an average of 296 hours a year. So, in 2021, they were at least. If you spend 70% of your time in a specific game, I basically call you a dedicated player of that game at that point. So I can safely say that there were about 7 million dedicated Call of Duty players on PlayStation in 2021. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that these folk, as much as people may try to tell you that the different reasons why they went and bought the console, it seems like their major reason was to play Call of Duty. Wouldn't you agree? I agree, VG. Good. And so now, seeing as Xbox was looking at this paradigm, they looked and said, gaming has now taken a new turn. Xbox on their own platform were looking at the exact same data going, a bunch of people are buying our console to do exactly that. What do we need to do? We need to get the platform itself and own it. Whereby, wherever the gamer is or wherever they're coming from or however they choose to access that platform, and when I say platform, I'm now calling the game a platform because, like I said, you can put Fortnite, GTA, whatever live service game you want in there, Roblox or whatnot. Xbox decided they wanted to own a platform. If they could afford Roblox, or not afford, they can. If they could buy Roblox, they would have bought it. If Epic Games said, hey, Microsoft, do y'all want, a piece of Fortnite? They'd have taken it. It would have been any of them. I mean, if any of them came up for sale, if Rockstar said, we'll give you, a 20% stake in our, they would have taken it. But somewhere, somehow, it just happened to be that Activision found it financially beneficial for them to divest of some interests. And Microsoft said, well, this could not be a much more perfect opportunity for exactly where we want to be in the gaming space. So we saw PlayStation via the unfortunate Insomniac hack talk about this reality and talk about the impact. And at the time, a lot of the punditry was not necessarily interested in considering the impact of how the gaming scene was going to go. Keep in mind, though, that the hints were already there. Hints such as, number one, PlayStation investing in how many live service games? Somebody give me the number. 12. Yeah, thank you so much for you at the back. Little Johnny, you're so smart. When you look at what the punditry knew at the time, this is July 12, 2023. Let's go back to that GamesRadar article. When was that written? That was written in June 29th of 2023. So everybody kind of had a sense of what was going on. I just feel like there was a lot of disbelief. Like, why would PlayStation go ahead and do like all these live service games? Like Spider-Man, God of War, The Last of Us. People were still thinking that the gaming industry of their, 19-year-old selves was the same gaming industry that was going to be happening going forward. Not knowing that the shift had already quietly happened as more and more people were just focusing on games that they enjoyed playing and spent time on, community-based games. And all these companies were monetizing the heck out of them. Hey, what's that new game that's coming out over here that's another live service shooter that has had multiple iterations and had a lot of issues, but the company won't stop trying to nail down the formula? Battlefield VG. Good. See what I told you? They all need to make that game so that they can make their way into the Piscatella 15. Isn't that crazy? So all of this was out here in front of every single one of us, and for some strange reason, it just seemed like nobody wanted to believe it. Sony investing $2.1 billion in gaming R&D focusing on live service. Interesting. This is another article. Sony commits to launch just 6 of PlayStation's 12 live service games by March 2026. Other 6 up in the air. Well, they're way up in the air now, but that doesn't mean they're going to stop. Do you know why they're not going to stop? There was another game that showed up out of nowhere that kind of continued to prove that you can get into the Piscatella 15. Just keep pushing it, though. For instance, Marvel Rivals. If you listen to what Linezar said when they sat down at the PlayStation fireside chat for their investors, do you remember what she said about their live service game? She said the words, "I've watched that thing so much, you can go verify for yourself, for our live service games becoming more consistent." Ladies and gentlemen, if you play on PlayStation and you think you're not going to eat another possible 10 iterations of live service games coming down the pipeline, I have a bridge that goes all the way from Alaska to my home country, Nigeria, to sell you. These companies are not going to relent simply because this is now the new race in terms of their competition. This is it. It's the platform wars. And it's not just by how many platform-based hardware units you sell. It's by how many people you can get into your software platform ecosystem. As Epic Games pretty much showed the way. And actually, I wouldn't say it was Epic Games that showed the way. There were already these platforms in existence, such as World of Warcraft and all of the others. It just became this piece where they had to find ways to adopt those classic platform systems to the new school of gamers and players. And now it's becoming much more ubiquitous, where if your platform can actually recruit players of varying ages, like Fortnite has done, then bam. So what are you going to see? You're going to see more and more and more and more and more iterations of live service games coming from everybody that has the money to do it. In fact, let me go ahead and show you how crazy this is. Shall we just switch it a little bit? Let's go to Ubisoft. Ubisoft was successful in making Tom Clancy's The Division 1 and The Division 2. They did a very, very good job in being able to get players into that ecosystem. So proud of, what they accomplished. However, they never stuck with it long enough to figure out a way to flesh out that ecosystem in a way that created maybe a Rainbow Six Siege for them. Notice how Rainbow Six Siege constantly gets transformations and doesn't necessarily get sequels or other iterations. Because Rainbow Six Siege struck that gold immediately. For the Division's case, they wanted to now go back and pivot with an easier way by making a game called The Division Heartland. They even tried for another mobile game called The Division Resurgence. However, the formula was always sitting right in front of them, how they could use and leverage the Division itself to do it. Remember when they advertised The Division 1 at E3? I don't know if many of you remember that, but I'll show you this particular paradigm real quick. In this trailer, while the players were all playing and talking to each other, a friend of theirs, Chris AFK, look on the bottom here, logged in via a tablet. Guys, this was 12 years ago. I mean, they were joshing with us. They had no intention, or nor did they. I don't think they had the capability, or perhaps they had the intention and just couldn't pull it off in good time to get the game to ship. But this right here was their entry point where they could have built a thriving platform for a post-pandemic survival life service game and continued it, but the technology probably held them back and they could not go ahead with the plan. This right here, I think, were the glimpses of what every publisher, every CEO, everybody that's been making the moves in gaming had been desiring for the longest time. And out of nowhere, with their billions of dollars, Microsoft comes in and swoops their way to the top. PlayStation is following, and they will try to get there.